measure our mistakes in life as only trifle and insignificant, and the mistakes of others as great crimes. We must use a right measure, a single measure, a golden measure, and the golden measure, of course, is love. And we don't help our children or anyone by punishing them. We don't help them by accusing them. If we use those ways, we've actually made it harder for them. Harder for them in their own progress, but harder to even accept our help. Instead, use the golden standard of love, which just means expressing things gently with love, pointing out things. Then they're more likely to accept the help and guidance. Not a guarantee, but they're just more likely to. If you go accusing people, they just want to reject whatever you're trying to say. And we must study the character of the people we want to help, meaning we need to understand their unique psychology. And it doesn't mean that the information we gain from that, we use to change them. No, we use it to help them understand what's going on. We do this only so that they might feel happier and freer. Helping while thinking we're trying to change someone for the better, we're not serving them at all. We're only serving our egoism. Now here's where we have to be careful, because our egoism is way more cunning than you think it is. And it likes to tell you and itself it wants to serve God, presenting itself as being good and charitable. This is what Christ was talking about. We said the devil presents itself as an angel of light. So we must be careful. And not to let it interfere or pretend it's got altruistic motives, sacrificing itself for the good, something like that. We must really see what's behind it and not be deceived by this trick. And there's a lot of effort being made to trick us, to deceive us, to hold us on the standstill, to divert us by our own egotism, by the egoism of others, and by those entities that masquerade as higher guides. Now, most people can't recognize the difference between a being and an entity. And by a being, we mean a being, a spirit being. That could be a human being or an archangelic being. And an entity is an elemental. It's a living existence. But most people, when they hear the voice of an entity versus a being, they don't really understand the difference. It takes a while to develop that ability to discern that. So there's so much deception going on. Yeah.
Is there something you can ask them, or?
No, you just have to learn how they talk.
Okay.
And the entities will try to deceive you and say a lot of words, but I don't even know how to tell you, but it lacks this quality of authenticity. And often the entities will repeat the same things to you, where a being will say something unique, very short. There's not a lot of words. The entities use a lot of words and try to pump your ego up or something like that, or sometimes they try to crush it, but try to make you feel bad, or sometimes they try to make you feel really good about yourself. All that's just part of the deception. And this is exactly where we need observation and introspection, and especially honesty with ourselves. How honest are we with ourselves of what's really going on in our life? So this builds discernment into our character, which helps us from being deceived by anyone. And there's a lot of deception going on now. You think, okay, the false entities or the negative entities try to deceive us, and they do. They try to oppose us, block us, and deceive us. But one way they catch you, that they catch people, especially mediums, is they do things for them that makes the medium think it's doing it. Even healing people or bringing positive results to people. And they do this to get you to listen to them, because they're out to have attention from you. So all this is about building our character, a good character. And what can that be like? What can character building be compared to? I think it's like the art of music, in the sense that training is needed to recognize harmony. Now, in the mystic traditions of the Sufis, they refer to everyone having their own unique tone. And this tone comes from the emotions and thoughts people harbor and express, from their behaviors. So every person is vibrating at their own unique tone. So if you look at every human being like a musical note, we can recognize that note as either sharp or flat, low or high, what pitch it belongs to. And in this way, we can know a lot about each individual person and how to deal with them. And we show our art in our speech and actions to each person we meet. And we can harmonize with each tone of that person and with the rhythm of the present moment. Which is to say that we can speak to the person, different people, the same words in different tones, and the different tones change the meaning for that person. We can speak a word at the proper moment or withhold a word when it's not the proper moment. Just like there's silence between notes of music, you need both silence and sound to complete the music of life. And we're trying to become a more refined personality, which is really to become musical, harmonious. In other words, to become artistic in the expression of our personality. And it's the inner application to produce, this inner inclination to produce beauty that helps one in the art of character building. People are way more inclined to work for outer refinement than inner refinement. They're far more attentive to dressing themselves properly, their material body properly, than to dress their emotions, their personality with refined emotions and thoughts. But again, the outer refinements are just meaningless if there's not an inner refinement in the sense of beauty inside. So we must try to develop beauty in all we do. Beauty in our expressions is a sign of spiritual unfoldment. Can you imagine a beautiful music? And the harmony is the basis of beauty, right? You can't imagine beautiful music without harmony in it. You can't imagine beautiful art without harmony in it. Anything like that, it has to have harmony, architecture. It's got to be harmonious between its parts. And so it is in our personality. And friendliness expressed in the kind thoughts and words or actions is the main thing in creating a refined personality. And no matter how much a person is refined and developed, there's always room for improvement in refinement and gentleness. Now, gentleness comes from considering things before we act. In other words, to think before we speak or do. In other words, to practice self-mastery. The person who has no control over themselves lacks gentleness. The individual, race, or nations who show lack of gentleness really show their level of evolution, spiritual evolution. People become intoxicated with matter, as Dasquillus often said. In other words, commercialism keeps us as personalities caught up in the attainment of material possessions, but there's nothing wrong with material possessions. What we go wrong when our material possessions end up possessing us, making us slaves. And people throughout, especially in the Western countries, especially America, become debt slaves just to have possessions. We thought the period of slavery is over. This is a far worse period of slavery, and it's affected everybody. It's really, there's no end to it. So gaining the everyday things in life is a need of the personality. But if we get caught in the pursuit, we lose the beauty, which is the need of the soul.